Okay, well, welcome everyone, and a massive welcome to Jamie Cloud from New York area. So this is early morning for her, and I can see many of you on this call will probably be very familiar with Jamie Cloud's name and the Cloud Institute that she set up in New York. I certainly heard about her many years ago. And only recently did Jamie and I connect, though I know she's been doing some work for Oxford University recently. She's a long time proponent of ESD, and by ESD, I mean education for sustainability, looking at methods that I think many of you online here would recognize. And is well known internationally, has written books, creates a lot of resources, and is trying to get things continuing over the pond, as we like to call it. So, without further ado, massive welcome. Thank you for joining us, Jamie. And let's kick off with your slides and your new book.
Okay. Um, Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. So, just a little bit about, I will share my screen here. Oh, you know what? Look at my
There's your
poor
calendar.
my poor calendar. Um, this is uh, we like to use this as our opening line, inspiring young people to think about the world, their relationship to it, and their ability to influence it in an entirely new way. So we have been at this educating for sustainability with schools, all different kinds of schools all over the world, since 1995. But I started thinking about it of course, in 87 when a lot of people started thinking about it with our Common Future report, but really started noticing what was going on in the world when I was in the sixth grade in 1968. We were in the first global education experiment, so that's where it all started for me. And I wrote this book. Most of our work, this is the book that I just wrote, and that's the one I want to talk most about today. Um, I wrote this book because I work with schools and I love schools, and all the children and young people are legally required to be there, which is why I'm there with them and why all of you are there. And they're very slow. And we need to make this grand course correction much faster. We have to make it bigger and faster. And so I thought, let me write a book to young people and anybody who loves them, so that we can move this thing along much more quickly. Most of our work is what we call sustainabilizing the curriculum. Um, the instructional practices, every great instructional practice and methodology makes sense. What we're trying to do is shift the lens so that every discipline has a unique role to play in helping us make that grand course correction. So I'm just going to go through a little bit on the book, and I thought I'd read some excerpts and then give you some things to think about, and then you're going to go off and think on your own. So in the first part of the book, it's interesting. The publisher said, start with the problems and then get to us to solutions. And I said, we don't roll like that. That's not the way education for sustainability approaches life. We start with the end in mind, with the future we want, and then we can talk about how we got where we are, and then we talk about how to get from here to there. So they went with it. So the first chapter, I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. I've got them in orange. Um, I want young people to be able to envision. The older they get in pre-K to 12, the less they're able to imagine and envision. And that is not good. And so I want them to know that it's game on. And I'm just going to read a little bit from that first chapter on Game On. I know that there are many adults and even some young people who believe it's game over. They say to me, "Oh, I think it's great that you still have hope." Arr. Or there's nothing we can do about it. It's too late. Or if no one else is doing it, why should I? Or there isn't enough to go around, so I'll get what I can in the meantime so I can enjoy it while it lasts. One of my new favorites is, yes, I know our situation is unsustainable. And really? They know it and they're not doing everything they can to right the ship? I don't get that. This is not a drill. What are they thinking? Young people I know call these folks the given ups. That I get. It is game on from my point of view. It has to be. This is our life we're talking about. This is all life we're talking about. Obviously, we have to do what it takes to change the trajectory we're on. We have to bring our A game and rise to the occasion. Fortunately, a great many others share this point of view. The challenges we face today are real and represent our current reality, and it doesn't have to be this way. This is not inevitable. This is not our destiny, not our fate. A course correction is required. David Corton calls it the great turning. And then I go on to just explain a bit about what sustainability is, and then what regeneration is. And in fun definitions that don't make your eyes glaze over, because that's always something people like to start with definitions of sustainability, and it never works in my experience. Um, so I'm trying, but I do have to explain what I mean when I talk about it. Um, and then I wanted to talk, let's see, the second part is how did we get from here to there? And this comes from a systems thinking simulation we've been playing for over 30 years called the Fish Game. Many of you have probably played it. It was adapted from Fish Banks um, by Dennis Meadows. And what happens in the game is it's just a simple little fishing game, and people overfish and overfish and overfish and overfish, the definition of insanity, every single time. And so I started asking in the beginning, why are you doing that? What are you thinking? And they started telling me. And I started jotting it down. And 20 something years later, I get, well, actually 30 something years later, I get exactly the same responses every time. And I just played it last week and the same thing keeps happening. It's not getting any better. And so what I discovered is the mental models of unsustainability are alive and well out there, and people are operating with them. And so this next part is all about the mental models of unsustainability and the kind of thinking that got us into this mess. And it turns out that we tend not to take responsibility for the difference we make when we can't see or perceive it. So I spend a lot of time in the book calling on the brain science to help us, such a smart species, shooting ourselves in the foot doesn't make any sense. What's going on there? And it turns out that the schema or the mental models, the mental maps that we're operating with are old and outdated, and we need to reframe. And much of what is unsustainable about our current reality is the unintended local and global consequences of mindless, outdated mental models and the behaviors they drive. And so that's that next part is all about those mindsets. And the chapter 6 there is about the problem with focusing on problems all the time, and especially symptoms of problems, which there's so much of out there. And of course, the more you focus on the problem, the more you reinforce the thinking that caused the problem. So it's not working. So then in part 3, and I'm going fast because I know these are short, I spend a lot more time on the mindsets of sustainability. And we talk about them as the counterforce to the mental models of unsustainability, because the brain scientists are really clear that you can't not think a certain way. You can only think differently. And so we need antidotes. We need the counterforce to those mental models of unsustainability. And each of these then is an antidote to one of those, which I love. And this, I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts from this chapter 7, The Counterforce. And there's a little prologue in the top by Kate Harris of Lands of Lost Borders. And she says, flight is easiest when you launch against the wind rather than with it, because the faster air moves against a set of wings, the more lift is generated. Meaning, headwinds don't impede flight so much as give it a turbo boost. And I really like that analogy. Headwinds give us a turbo boost. Um, I know that it's all over the world, but in the US, the headwinds are strong. And then I go on to, I'll just read a little bit here. In 1845, Edgar Allan Poe published the story entitled A Descent into the Maelstrom. The narrator in the story is a boat captain. He tells the story of being at sea when he encounters a maelstrom, a powerful, violent whirlpool that sucks down his boat and all the objects within its radius, pulling everything down, down, down in its force. At one point, as he's searching for a way to survive, he notices that right next to the whirlpool that's sucking everything down, there is a counterforce pushing debris, fish, and other objects up. In the story, the captain finds a way to maneuver his boat over to the counterforce. He's pushed up and out of the depths of the water and his despair into the light and onto the surface of the water. He finds his way home to eventually tell his story. The captain used the maelstrom's own energy against it and to his advantage. He showed a keen awareness of his surroundings, carefully observing the maelstrom's behavior and patterns. And I'm hoping that that'll be useful to young people at this time, especially. And then a couple more quick ones. There's a chapter in the last part called Find Your Compelling Purpose. And I'll just say a few words about that. Oh, I think I'm doing good on time. There is a survey tool called Find Your Compelling Purpose, and it's designed by Olivier Betac and Pierre-François Dehaes at the Darwin Institute to help you find and express your compelling purpose, what your unique contribution to the world is. It's sort of like Ikigai, but different. I met Pierre and Olivier recently and fell in love with this work and immediately wanted to share it with you here in the book. This is what they explained to me. The compelling purpose is a life mission that is simultaneously enjoyable and useful to others if one commits to it with ambition. It fulfills the need to contribute to the world simply by being oneself. How perfect. And then lastly, a note on the commons. The last few chapters are just a few things I want everybody to know. And one of them is about recognizing and protecting the commons. And I think you all know what the commons are, but just in case, it's the places and things we all share, that we all depend on, and are all responsible for. So just a few words about them. In the context of interdependence, it's not at all rational for self-interested corporations or individuals to overexploit the commons. It degrades the ability of those natural systems to replenish themselves. This is unsustainable for nature, for the exploiters, and for all of us who have rights and responsibilities to them, all in the name of maximizing gains, a mental model of unsustainability. I think it's safe to conclude that markets are not fit for the purpose of tending our commons. They're also very poor maintainers of the very public goods that they depend on. This is because markets can provide conflicting incentives that can act to degrade common public goods when they're treated as commodities. In these cases, the resource base is held in common, but the profits from the resource use are private. In addition, classic pricing signals do not work with limited commons. If they become scarce and that drives the price up, more people, for example, go fishing and overfish. And then I'll skip over a few things. We have to find new social and legal norms and other mechanisms to protect and care for our commons and our common public goods. Our public goods are our commons. They're not and cannot be treated as private commodities subject only to the markets. We've established that markets are poor maintainers of public goods. They're not designed for that purpose. It's not their fault. It's not their responsibility. It's ours. Well, that's just a few excerpts for the book. Hopefully that's enticing enough to want to talk a little bit more about it. And then these are the kinds of things that we do with schools and some universities, taking whatever it is they're teaching, whatever their curriculum, and sustainabilizing it, helping it do more than what it's already doing by helping it prepare young people and all of us for the future we want. And that's my story.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jaimie. That was so much there for everyone to draw on, and I think we're going to have an opportunity now in breakout rooms to have a think about some of those themes and ideas that came up. And Jaimie, did you want to introduce this provocation for people to take into the room?
Yes, we've all agreed, and hopefully this will be a useful question. What strikes you as something you want to talk more deeply about?
Mhm.
What strikes you as something you would like to talk more deeply about?
Thanks, Jaimie. So I think George is on it with the breakout rooms. We'll have about 5 to 8 minutes or so.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm sure you barely got through introductions, but I hope you had some nice conversations anyway. Um, have we got all of our rooms back now? I can't quite see.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Lovely. Holly, over to you for a quick recap.
Do
Great.
we
Thanks.
should we close off the slide so we can see everyone? Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, perfect. So we have 4 breakout rooms, and it would be amazing if we can hear very briefly from each one. We're in terms of timing, we're doing really well, but the term compassionately brief is something that I'd love us all to hold. That we want to have time for every room to feedback. So if I can invite a speaker from each room to speak for maybe a minute, just to either summarize or just share a little snippet or flavor of what came out of your room, knowing that we'll never even be able to just scratch the surface, but this is the start of something new. Jaimie said before we started today, if I've done my job right, people will go away with more and better questions. So if you haven't solved or answered anything, that's a good thing. We want you to go away with even more questions and thoughts. But let's hear from room one first. So Diane, Justin, Paul, anyone from your room just want to share a minute of something that came out for you?
I'm happy to talk. I don't know if
Thanks,
everybody.
Diane.
One issue was put forward, and that is how do we convince 60 million people, or however 6 billion people? I don't know the big number, but how do we convince everybody that we all affect? For my thought, which is that we all affect each other, we all affect everything anyway. So come on, sort
Mhm.
yourself out. And one of the solutions, therefore, that was put forward was, and I'm going to put this in a nutshell. It wasn't these words that were spoken, but know thyself. To thine own self be true. If only we could tell the young generation how to be them, find yourself and be yourself. You've got to go through some pretty traumatic stuff, I think, to be able to find who you really are, what you're really passionate about. But find that out and stand up and be real.
Yeah.
And therefore, that way, you might convince 20 million people, 6 billion, I'm not sure. Work on it one at a time, one person at a time would be my answer to that.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Diane. That's a beautiful snippet, really encouraging. Room two, Carolyn, Catherine, and Rich, who would like to share
I
a
can
moment.
summarize.
Yeah, go for it, Carolyn. Thank you.
So with Catherine and Rich, Catherine mentioned re-engaging or meeting, talking with a former student and how the student made different choices based on an impact of being in her room when he was younger, and how his choices are really based around sustainability. Rich mentioned some of the challenges around a curriculum that's so constricted. How do you find time for sustainability and really digging into bigger ideas and feeling like you have the time given the curriculum? And I had mentioned around kind of the bigger question around what is school for, and how high schoolers are really asking, well, I'm not feeling prepared for what comes next. So what just happened?
Yeah.
I'm worried about sustainability. I'm still worried about these things, and no one's helped me figure them out.
Yeah.
Rich and Catherine, did I summarize our conversation, or please jump in?
Yeah, well, feel free to post in the chat. Sorry, just to keep us moving. And I know that everyone has so much to say. But yeah, feel free to kind of drop in a moment of extra something, or perhaps share in the chat. But yeah, we'll maybe give the microphone to room three. That's Andrew, Claire, and Jaimie. Anyone from your room? And I think Anne was in there too.
Maybe Claire.
Um,
She
yeah,
got a
well,
little
I
bit
think
cut off.
both Andrew and Claire should say something quickly because two really good points.
Go,
Anne,
Andrew.
you're squeezing the rules always.
I know.
If I
We
very
make
quick,
them, we can break them.
very quickly, it was just my thing was about the need to have a bit more direct exposure to the issues and picking up on Jamie's point that we can't take responsibility for things we can't see or perceive. That thereby, if we could link, if we could enable young people to get to know others in areas where these issues are live and real, then there's a reason for them to care and understand. Claire was just in the middle of a very good quote when we stopped the breakout. So I think Claire, you ought to go next.
I'll conclude with my quote then. It's from Bean and Apple. A more democratic experience is built through continual efforts to make a difference. And we were all reflecting on how us all making a difference and showing up was a really important part of this. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Claire.
And we also said that Jaimie, through the Cloud Institute, and Seed have become partners across the pond, which Andrew thought was a great idea. So
Yes. We love that. That's all the kind of interconnection.
Yeah.
And finally, room 4, where I was in, so we had Suzanne and Artie. Suzanne, Artie, do you want to very briefly sum up a moment from our chat?
Suzanne, do you want to say something?
No, go on, Artie, you.
Okay, Suzanne was actually saying there are too many things on the list, and I feel also that there are so many things coming at us in terms of agendas, career development and employability, now sustainability. And I said something about the need to interconnect the principles, values, and aims of all these agendas and interconnect them within the education, within the mindset and the heart set of each individual student. So that is the way I dealt with it. When I was working, I'm retired now, but I'm still writing. So I've written it into books, and within the framework, Soaring to Success, it is about finding yourself and being yourself, connecting yourself with aspirations and opportunities. So that's in the SOAR framework. And then recently I've written this responsible education, responsible and responsive education aligned with sustainable development goals. It's just a chapter, but the publication allows you to actually download and you can use it. So it's got the methods in these within the frameworks. So it's got the methods to enable each student to do it.
Thanks, Artie.
Something, yeah.
And I love that responsible comes back as well. That's a really useful term. Thanks, everyone. Again, I know it's so hard to kind of capture the essence, but as always, this is just the beginning of something. I'm going to hand over, I think, to Kathy now to kind of start to wrap us up for today. Aware that we've reached our half an hour. If anyone does need to drop off, feel free to do so. It's been so lovely to see you, but hopefully you can stay on just for a couple more minutes as we share what's coming up next.
Yeah, just responding to a couple of those points on, how do we get lots of people responding all together? So what a few of the comments you were feeding back on earlier. And I think one of them, hopefully, we're going to be answering in the next Learning Lunch, where we've got Ellie Langthorne, our other co-chair at Our Shared World, who'll be giving a talk about the National Emergency Briefing. So her particular session is going to look at how a group of educators has created some supporting documents and guidance for schools, for educators working in schools around the National Emergency Briefing. So that will be on the 9th of July. It's a Thursday. She was very busy, Ellie, so that was the only day we could do.
Can I just add to this? Really recommend you attend, because the following week there'll be an event in the House of Commons that David Woolacombe, Seed, and Our Shared World and Ellie have managed to put on and secure a room and an MP. And it really is asking this question about so with this national emergency briefing and the education side of it, what are we asking for in the education system? So do join the next one so that you can have your say.
Lovely, thanks, Anne. And back to you now, whether you had a special section, I think.
Yes, I just want to say, because this is George's last learning lunch as coordinator, I think he's going to keep joining because he's moving on to Pastures New. It's the ocean, what's it called again? The Ocean
Communications Inc., Ocean Action Agency.
Ocean Action. And, you know, George has been doing this since he started at Seed. And I don't know if you realize this, but this was our 20th learning lunch. So thank you, everyone. There's quite a lot of people on here who have actually done a learning lunch. And we've had about 1,000 people have signed up to these learning lunches. So on every level, it's been a great success, not just the idea from Kathy, but also George's sterling work on marketing and communications and making sure the Our Shared World website is up to date, and including two events, big events that we ran, one at the Google headquarters in London on the PAX thing, trying to keep politicians accountable to students on climate change. And then more recently, the transformative learning event at UCL that George helped put on. So thank you very much, George, for all of your work. And look forward to seeing you at the next learning lunch as a participant.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jaimie, as
I'll
well.
get stuck into
Thank
conversations
you so much.
more next time.
Yeah, and finally, a big, big thank you to Jaimie for getting up early to do this. I'm not quite sure what the time is there, but that was. I'm definitely going to buy the book now.
Good, good. And that's once everybody's read it, then we can have a book club.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Great idea. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. See you
Thanks,
soon.
everyone.
Bye.
Great to see you.